Husband dumped his blind wife after she went bankrupt, unaware of her $50 million lottery ticket. She gave him her world, her sightless trust, her unwavering love, her strength in silence. But when bankruptcy stripped away their comfort, the man who once swore, for better or worse, showed his true face. "You're nothing but a blind burden," he spat, waving the divorce papers like a victory flag. "I won't chain myself to failure. Find your way alone in the dark." Instead of protection, he offered cruelty. Instead of compassion, he delivered humiliation. At her lowest hour, abandoned and heartbroken, he walked away with another woman, believing he had discarded a useless wife. But what he didn't know was that hidden in her trembling hands lay a lottery ticket worth $50 million, a silent fortune that would one day rewrite her destiny. Sometimes the ones you discard are the very ones destined to rise beyond your reach. Sometimes the shadow you mock becomes the fire that consumes your pride. This is a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate revenge. A story where cruelty meets justice, and a blind woman becomes the light her betrayer can never escape. At first glance, their marriage looked perfect. Friends called them the golden couple. Matthew Bennett, tall and ambitious, walked proudly into every gathering with Emily, his graceful wife, at his side. She was radiant, soft-spoken, and always smiling. To outsiders, he was a successful businessman, and she was his devoted partner. But behind closed doors, the truth was different. Emily worked 2 jobs, early mornings at a bakery and late nights stitching clothes at home, just to cover their growing bills. Matthew had grand ideas, but no discipline. He loved luxury, nights out with friends and showing off, but he hated hard work. When his ventures failed, it was Emily who quietly stepped in, handing over her small savings, pawning her jewelry, and taking extra shifts to keep them afloat. "You're my rock," Matthew would say, kissing her cheek, but deep down she knew those words carried weight she alone bore. He never asked how she felt about the exhaustion, the constant pressure, the loneliness of carrying everything on her shoulders. To Emily, love meant sacrifice. To Matthew, love meant convenience. One evening, Emily dragged herself home after 12 hours at the bakery. Her hands were raw from kneading dough, her eyes heavy from lack of sleep. She found Matthew sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. The table was covered with unopened bills. "Matt, we need to talk," she said softly, setting down her bag. "The landlord gave us another notice. If we don't pay rent soon—" He cut her off, waving his hand. "Relax, Em. I'm meeting a guy tomorrow about a new business deal. Just trust me, okay?" Her heart sank. She had heard those words too many times. "But how will we cover the bills now? I can ask Mrs. Turner for extra shifts." He smiled, pulling her close. "That's why I love you. You always find a way. Don't worry, babe. I'll make it big soon. Then you'll never have to work another day in your life." It sounded sweet, but Emily knew the truth. His dreams were built on her sweat. That night after he fell asleep, she sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of bills. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She wanted to believe in him, to trust his words, but the imbalance gnawed at her. How much longer could she hold everything together? She whispered into the silence, "I just want us to be happy. Why does love feel so heavy?" The clock ticked past midnight. Emily rubbed her tired eyes, not knowing that soon her world would collapse in ways she could never imagine. Because tomorrow tragedy would come knocking, and the price of her devotion would be blindness. The morning began like any other. Emily rose early, slipping quietly out of bed so Matthew could sleep. She tied her apron and hurried to the bakery, her body heavy with exhaustion, but her heart determined to keep pushing. She whispered to herself, "Just a little longer. Things will get better." By noon, she was racing between shelves, handing out bread to impatient customers. The shop buzzed with noise, and Emily hardly noticed the flickering lights overhead. But outside, the sky darkened, winds rising with unusual force. A storm was coming. When her shift ended, she packed the unsold loaves into a box for neighbors who often went hungry. With the box balanced in her arms, she stepped onto the wet street. The rain was sharp, the air heavy. She pulled her coat tighter and hurried toward the bus stop. Suddenly, screeching tires tore through the storm's roar. Emily froze. A delivery truck swerved, its headlights blinding, its horns screaming. In a split second, everything changed. The box of bread flew from her hands. The impact slammed her onto the pavement. Shards of glass rained down as the truck clipped a streetlight, sparks showering the ground. Pain seared through her skull. Then, darkness. When Emily woke hours later, she was in a hospital bed, her head bandaged, the world around her silent, except for beeping monitors. Panic set in. She tried to blink, but all she saw was black. Her voice cracked. "Doctor, I can't see. Please, why can't I see?" The doctor's expression was heavy with sorrow. "Emily, the accident caused severe trauma. The damage to your eyes is irreversible. I'm sorry, you're blind." The words crushed her. She clutched the bed sheets, shaking. Tears spilled though she could not see them. Blind? Forever? How will I work? How will I live? The door burst open. Matthew entered, his face pale. For a moment he looked concerned, but it quickly faded into irritation. "So it's true," he muttered, glancing at the doctor. "She can't see?" The doctor nodded. "She will need rehabilitation, support, and patience. This is a life-altering condition." Emily reached out, her trembling hands searching. "Matt, I need you. Please don't leave me." He stiffened. For the first time, she felt him hesitate before taking her hand. His silence cut deeper than the accident itself. The days that followed were a blur of fear and vulnerability. Nurses helped her eat, bathe, and walk, while Matthew came less and less. Bills piled up, and whispers filled the hospital hallways about unpaid balances. Friends who once smiled at her door were suddenly too busy. Her world shrank into a fragile support system of strangers' kindness, while the man she trusted most began to slip away. One night as she lay in the dark, Matthew's voice pierced her heart. "I can't do this, Em. I didn't sign up for a blind wife. You're dead weight now." Her breath caught. The man she loved, the one she sacrificed everything for, was already preparing to abandon her. The hospital discharged Emily with nothing more than a white cane and a list of appointments she could no longer afford. Her body was weak, her world dark, but she still clung to hope that Matthew would stay by her side. She told herself, "He just needs time. He's shocked. He'll come around." But the reality was harsher. Back at their small apartment, Matthew's frustration grew sharper with each passing day. He no longer kissed her forehead or held her hand. Instead, he sighed loudly whenever she struggled to find the edge of the couch, or knocked over a glass trying to pour water. "Do you have to stumble around like that?" he snapped one evening as she bumped into the coffee table. "You're making the place a mess." Emily's lips trembled. "I'm still learning. Matt, if you could just guide me." "I don't have time to babysit you," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. Soon his absences stretched longer. He claimed to be networking or meeting investors, but Emily could smell perfume on his shirts that wasn't hers. Meanwhile, the financial pressure tightened around her like a noose. Without her bakery shifts, their income vanished. Creditors called daily, their voices cold. "Mrs. Bennett, your account is overdue. When can we expect payment?" She stammered apologies, fumbling with numbers she couldn't see, while Matthew shrugged off the responsibility. "Just tell them you'll pay later," he said, scrolling through his phone. "But with what?" Emily whispered. Silence. The rent went unpaid. The electricity flickered. Neighbors who once greeted Emily now whispered as she passed, her cane tapping the pavement. "Poor thing. Her husband won't last. She's finished." Their pity cut her deeper than their gossip. One afternoon she sat alone on the couch, clutching the last unopened bill. Her fingers traced the paper edges, though her eyes could not read them. A tear slipped down her cheek. "How did I become a burden overnight? I gave him everything. Why does he treat me like nothing?" That night, Matthew stumbled in smelling of alcohol. She reached for him, desperate for comfort. "Matt, please, just talk to me. I'm scared." He shoved her hand away. "You think you're the only one with problems? You're dragging me down, Em. I can't live like this." Her heart shattered. For the first time, she realized she was utterly alone, even in her own marriage. The next morning, she woke to silence. Matthew was gone. No note, no explanation, just the faint echo of a slammed door. Emily sat at the kitchen table, clutching her cane. listening to the emptiness around her. Her chest tightened as the truth settled in. She had lost not just her sight, but also the man she once trusted with her life. And though she didn't know it yet, his betrayal was only beginning. Emily's world had grown painfully small, four walls, silence, and the steady tap of her cane against worn wooden floors. But just when she thought everyone had abandoned her, a familiar voice reappeared. Sophie, her old college friend. "Emily, it's me," Sophie said warmly, knocking lightly on the door. "I heard about the accident. I couldn't just stay away." Emily's heart lifted. She hadn't heard genuine kindness in weeks. Sophie hugged her, the scent of lavender filling the air. "You look thinner," Sophie whispered. "Don't worry, I'll help you through this." For a moment, Emily believed her. Sophie began visiting often, bringing groceries, cleaning the apartment, even reading bills aloud. Emily clung to her presence like a lifeline. "You're a blessing," she told her one evening. "I don't know what I'd do without you." But beneath Sophie's smile lurked envy. She had always admired Emily's grace, Matthew's attention, and the life they shared. Now seeing Emily blind and broken, Sophie's pity twisted into something darker, an opportunity. One evening as Emily rested on the couch, Sophie's tone shifted. "Matt's been coming to see me," she said softly. Emily sat up, confused. "What do you mean?" Sophie hesitated, then sighed. "He's hurting too, Em. He feels trapped. He told me he still cares for you, but he needs someone who understands him." Emily's stomach churned. "You mean you?" Sophie didn't deny it. She touched Emily's hand gently. "I didn't plan this, I swear. But Matt and we connect. Still, I promise I'll always be here for you." Emily snatched her hand back. The betrayal stung worse than the accident itself. Her husband had drifted away, but her closest friend had crossed the line. Yet Emily's loneliness made her desperate. She swallowed the pain and whispered, "If he's happy with you, then maybe it's what he needs." Sophie smiled faintly, though Emily couldn't see it. In that moment, Sophie felt victorious, envy disguised as compassion. She thought she had taken everything Emily had left. But late that night, Emily sat awake, clutching her cane, trembling. Her trust had been misplaced. The friend she welcomed into her broken world had become another dagger in her back. The next day, Matthew appeared at the apartment for the first time in weeks. His voice was cold but smug. "I came to get some of my things. Sophie's waiting for me downstairs." Emily's heart cracked. "You're with her now?" "My own friend?" He laughed bitterly. "At least she doesn't need babysitting." Her tears fell hot and fast. She turned her face toward the wall, unwilling to let him see her break. As the door slammed shut behind him, the sound of Sophie's laughter drifted up from the street. Emily's trembling hands gripped the edge of the table. For the first time, a spark of anger flared inside her. They thought she was helpless. They thought she had nothing left. They were wrong. The air was heavy the night Matthew finally ended it. Emily sat on the edge of their bed, cane by her side, waiting for him to return from yet another business meeting. When the door creaked open past midnight, she inhaled sharply, praying he had come to talk, to listen, to stay. Instead, she heard Sophie's voice giggling faintly behind him. Emily's chest tightened. "Matt? You brought her here?" Matthew's footsteps dragged across the floor. "Relax. She's just waiting outside." His tone was sharp, unapologetic. "I'm not hiding anything anymore, Em. It's over between us." Her heart pounded. "Over? You promised me forever, for better or worse. How can you throw it all away when I need you most?" He tossed a stack of papers onto the bed. The crisp sound of legal documents sliced through the silence. "These are divorce papers. Sign them, and make it easy on both of us." Emily's trembling hands reached out, brushing against the rough edges. You're divorcing me now? When I've lost my sight? When I have nothing?" Matthew scoffed. "Exactly. You're nothing now. I can't drag dead weight for the rest of my life. Sophie makes me feel alive. You make me feel trapped." The words struck like knives. Emily bit her lip until it bled, refusing to let her sobs spill. "So all my sacrifices meant nothing? All the nights I worked, the dreams I gave up for you?" He leaned close, his voice low and cruel. You should have known love doesn't pay bills. I need a partner who can give me more, not drain me. You're blind, broke, and useless. What man would want that? The cruelty was unbearable. She clutched her cane like a lifeline, her tears soaking the papers she could not read. Matthew straightened, indifferent. Sophie's waiting. Sign them when you're ready. I'll send someone to pick them up. Emily whispered, her voice breaking. Matt, please don't do this. But he was already walking away. His shoes clicked against the floor, steady and cold. The door opened, and Sophie's laughter rose again, cruel and mocking. Together they left, the sound of their footsteps fading into the night. The silence afterward was suffocating. Emily curled into herself, shaking, her body racked with sobs. She replayed his vows in her mind. For better, for worse, in sickness and in health. Broken words that now mocked her pain. Her marriage was not just ending. It had been shattered by betrayal, humiliation, and abandonment. In that moment, lying alone in darkness, she thought she had reached the end of her story. But the universe had other plans. For hidden in her purse, untouched for weeks, was a small folded lottery ticket, a ticket that would soon rewrite her destiny. Emily didn't move for hours after Matthew left. The papers lay crumpled on the bed, damp with her tears. The apartment was silent, but her mind screamed. She replayed his words, "You're blind, broke, and useless," until they burned like fire in her chest. The despair was suffocating. She thought of the bakery, her independence, her laughter before the accident. It all felt like another life. Now she stumbled in the dark, abandoned by the man she gave everything for. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the nightstand. With trembling hands, she fumbled for it, pressing it to her ear. "Emmy, it's Mom," came the gentle voice. Emily broke instantly. "Mom," she whispered through sobs. "He left me. He left me for Sophie. I can't see. I can't work. I can't do anything. I'm useless." Her mother's voice grew firm, though heavy with love. "Don't you ever call yourself that. You are my daughter, the same girl who stood tall through every storm life threw at her. Blindness doesn't erase your worth." Emily shook her head, gripping the phone tighter. "But Mom, everything's gone. He said I'm nothing." "Then he never deserved you," her mother said sharply. "Listen to me, Emmy. A man who abandons you in darkness was never your light. You may feel broken now, but broken things can still shine." Emily swallowed hard. A flicker of warmth stirred inside her. "But how? I can't even walk across the room without falling." "Then start small," her mother urged. "Step by step. You're not alone. You have me, and you have the strength God placed in you. Don't let his cruelty define your future." For the first time in weeks, Emily took a deep breath. Her mother's words pressed against the cracks in her heart, mending them just enough to stand. After their call ended, Emily sat in silence, clutching her cane. She replayed her mother's voice. "Blindness doesn't erase your worth." The despair was still there, but now it was met with something new, a flicker of defiance. That night she stood slowly, feeling her way across the room. Her hand brushed the edge of her purse. She pulled it closer, fingers searching the contents. There, folded between old receipts, was the forgotten lottery ticket she had bought weeks before the accident. She held it in her hand, smiling faintly through tears. "Maybe this is nothing, but maybe, just maybe, it's a sign I'm not finished yet." Her heart beat faster. For the first time, Emily whispered, not in defeat, but in challenge, "I will not die in this darkness." The next morning, Emily clutched the small folded lottery ticket in her trembling hands. Her heart raced as she thought of her mother's words. Broken things can still shine. She couldn't see the numbers, but something inside told her this ticket mattered. She dialed the state lottery hotline with shaky fingers, praying she wasn't clinging to false hope. A cheerful voice answered, "Please enter your ticket number." Emily hesitated. I'm blind. Could someone read it for me?" The clerk paused kindly. "Ma'am, if you can give me the numbers, I'll check for you." Emily fumbled for her phone's voice recorder, whispering the numbers as best she could, replaying them until she was sure. She read them aloud, her voice quivering. There was silence on the line. Then the clerk gasped. Ma'am, congratulations. You've won. $50 million. Emily's knees buckled. She sank onto the couch, the phone slipping from her hand. Her whole body shook as tears streamed down her face. 50 million? It didn't feel real. In the darkness of her blindness, light had broken through. But then fear crept in. If Matthew finds out, if Sophie knows, she shivered. They would devour her fortune in days. She needed protection, and fast. That's when she remembered Mr. Lawson, the family lawyer her late uncle once trusted. With trembling resolve, she called his office. Emily Bennett, came the warm professional voice. It's been years. How can I help you? Her words tumbled out. Mr. Lawson, I think I've won the lottery, but I can't tell anyone, especially not Matthew. Lawson was silent, then spoke with gravity. If what you say is true, secrecy is your greatest shield. Do not disclose this to anyone, not friends, not neighbors, not even family until we secure it. We'll meet privately. He arranged a discreet car to pick her up the next day. When she arrived at his office, his assistant gently guided her inside. Lawson confirmed the win officially. Emily's hands shook as he read the figures aloud. $50,000. You're a wealthy woman now, Emily, he said, but wealth attracts wolves. We'll create a trust, layer protections, and ensure your identity is shielded. No one, especially your husband, must know. Emily exhaled, relief washing over her. For the first time since losing her sight, she felt a sense of power. A hidden blessing had changed everything. Still, she whispered, "Why me? Why now?" Lawson leaned forward. Because destiny never forgets the ones who suffer in silence. This is your turning point. Handle it with wisdom, and you'll rebuild more than your life. You'll build a legacy. Emily nodded slowly. Beneath the fear, cautious hope flickered. She was no longer the abandoned, blind woman Matthew called useless. She was a woman carrying a secret fortune, a destiny too powerful to be crushed. And while Matthew laughed in Sophie's arms, Emily quietly prepared for a future he could never touch. It had been weeks since Matthew walked out with Sophie, leaving Emily broken. Now, armed with a secret only she and her lawyer knew, Emily was learning to stand a little taller. Her cane still tapped uncertainly across the floor, but her spirit was stronger. One afternoon, a knock rattled the door. Emily's chest tightened. She wasn't expecting anyone. "Em, it's me. Open up." Her heart froze. "Matthew." She gripped her cane tightly, every muscle tense. Slowly, she opened the door. His cologne hit her first. Familiar, but now tainted with betrayal. "Matt," she whispered. He stepped in quickly, his voice syrupy sweet. "I've missed you, babe. Sophie. Well, she wasn't what I thought. I realize now you're the only one who ever truly loved me." Emily's jaw clenched. "You left me when I needed you most. You called me useless." He sighed dramatically. "I didn't mean it. I was angry, scared. You know me. I say stupid things. But I can't live without you, Em." He touched her arm gently, trying to guide her toward the couch. She stiffened. "Don't." He chuckled lightly, masking frustration. "Come on, don't be like that. I've been under a lot of pressure. Business is tough. Bills, you know how it is. But if we get back together, we can rebuild. Together." Emily's fingers tightened around her cane. Inside, her blood boiled. He wasn't here for love. He was circling like a vulture, sensing something had changed. "Matt," she said firmly, her voice steady, "you didn't come back because of love. You came because you lost Sophie. And maybe because you think I still have something left to give." He blinked, caught off guard. "What? No. How could you think that?" "You gaslit me for years," Emily continued, her voice rising. "You made me believe I was nothing without you, but I see you clearer now than ever, even without my eyes." He smirked nervously, trying to regain control. "Em, you're just emotional. You don't know what you're saying. I forgive you for lashing out. I'm here to make things right." Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "No, Matt, I forgive myself for loving a man who never valued me. I don't need you to make things right. I'll make them right on my own." The words stunned him. For the first time, his manipulation failed. He leaned closer, whispering urgently. Emily, are you hiding something from me? Did something happen? Her heart raced, but she kept her face calm. Yes, something did happen. I found my strength, and it doesn't include you. The silence that followed was heavy. Matthew's mask cracked. His voice turned sharp. You'll regret this. You think you can survive without me? You're blind, Em. You need me. Emily lifted her chin. No, Matt. You need me. And that's what scares you most. His fist clenched. Without another word, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Emily stood in the darkness, her cane steady in her hand. For the first time, she felt powerful. She had drawn a boundary and reclaimed her agency. Days passed after Matthew's stormy visit, but Emily's heart remained steady. She replayed her words over and over. I found my strength, and it doesn't include you. They gave her courage, but Matthew wasn't finished. One rainy afternoon, another knock echoed at the door. Emily hesitated. When she opened it, Matthew stood there holding a bouquet of roses. His eyes carried a practiced softness, his lips curled into a rehearsed smile. Em, he whispered, handing her the flowers. I came to say I'm sorry, truly sorry. Emily's fingers brushed the petals. They smelled sweet, but her instinct screamed of poison hidden in the fragrance. He guided her gently to the couch. I've been thinking about us. I was selfish, cruel. I let Sophie come between us, but she's gone now. All I want is you. Emily's voice trembled, though she stayed firm. You left me when I was at my lowest. You called me worthless. He clasped her hands dramatically. I didn't mean it. I was scared. I was drowning in debt, in failure. But I know now, you're my anchor. I can't live without you. Emily tilted her head. She could hear the desperation behind his performance. So what do you want from me, Matthew? His tone shifted slightly, just enough to reveal his greed. I just need to know you're okay financially. I lie awake at night worried about how you're surviving. Did you come into any money? Maybe some insurance payout, or... He stopped, feigning innocence. Emily's stomach tightened. He was probing. Somehow he sensed a change. I manage, she said calmly. He leaned closer, pressing. Come on, Em. We're still married technically. We should share everything. If you've got something hidden away, we can use it to rebuild. Think about it. We could start fresh. Big house, no more worries. I'd take care of you. She pulled her hands away sharply. You'd take care of yourself. That's what this is about. His voice grew sharp. Don't twist my words. I'm trying to make amends here. Emily shook her head slowly. No, you're trying to dig for gold. But I'm not a fool anymore, Matthew. I've learned the hard way. Your apologies always come with a price tag. Silence stretched between them. His mask slipped and bitterness flickered in his eyes. You'll regret pushing me away, Em. One day you'll realize I was the only one who truly cared. Emily stood, cane steady in her grip. Her voice was calm, resolute. I already realized the truth. You cared only when it benefited you, and I won't let greed be the chain that binds me again. Matthew slammed his fist on the table, frustration boiling over. But Emily didn't flinch. Her guarded heart was stronger than his theatrics. As he stormed out once more, Emily whispered to herself, not even $50 million could buy back my trust. He didn't know it, but she had grown wiser and untouchable. Emily's apartment was quiet again after Matthew's storm of greed. But this time, the silence didn't swallow her. She was learning to stand taller, to move with purpose even in darkness. Still, loneliness weighed heavily. Then came a knock, gentler, uncertain. Em, it's Daniel. Remember me? Her heart skipped. Daniel was her childhood friend, the boy from next door who used to race her down the street and share candy under the oak tree. Years had passed, but his voice was still warm, steady. She smiled faintly. Daniel, I didn't think you'd remember me. Remember you. Em, I never forgot you. He stepped inside, his boots carrying the smell of fresh earth. He worked in deliveries now, driving trucks, moving goods across town. I heard what happened. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Emily's throat tightened. Everyone left when things got hard. Even Matthew. Daniel sat across from her. I'm not Matthew. His tone was gentle but firm. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt safe. He didn't pity her. He didn't prod her for secrets. He simply asked, "What do you need?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I just need someone to believe in me again." Daniel leaned forward. "Then believe this. You are not broken. You're stronger than anyone I know. If you could carry Matthew's world on your shoulders, you can rebuild your own, and I'll help however I can." His words lit something inside her. For so long, she had been surrounded by betrayal and cruelty. Daniel's loyalty felt like water to parched soil. The very next week, he started showing up with small acts of kindness, groceries delivered without her asking, boxes arranged neatly so she could navigate easily. He even built her a simple labeling system, raised dots on containers so she could tell sugar from salt. "You don't have to do all this," Emily protested one day. He shrugged. "It's not about what I have to do. It's about what you deserve." Slowly, neighbors noticed the changes. Emily, once whispered about as a pitiful blind woman, now walked more confidently with her cane, guided sometimes by Daniel's steady hand. Her dignity, once trampled, began to bloom again. One neighbor murmured, "She looks stronger, happier." Another added, "That boy, he's helping her. Maybe she's not as helpless as we thought." Whispers shifted. Pity turned into respect. One evening, as Daniel packed up to leave, Emily touched his arm. "Thank you. You've done more for me than Matthew ever did. You remind me I still matter." Daniel smiled softly. "You always mattered, Em. You just needed someone to remind you." That night, lying in bed, Emily realized something profound. For the first time since her accident, she felt her dignity returning. Not because of wealth, not because of revenge, but because someone saw her worth without conditions. And deep down, she knew this was just the seed. A community, a movement, even a legacy could grow from this spark of kindness. Morning light streamed faintly through the curtains, though Emily could no longer see it. What she felt instead was different, a shift inside her. With Daniel's steady encouragement and Mr. Lawson's careful guidance, the pieces of her shattered life were beginning to align. Emily decided she wouldn't live in silence anymore. She wanted purpose, something that gave her days meaning. It began with one small step. She set up a sewing machine on the kitchen table, the same one she had used before the accident. At first, her fingers shook as she felt the threads and fabric. But Daniel was there, labeling the spools with textured markers so she could tell each color by touch. "You've got this," he encouraged. "Close your eyes, trust your hands." She smiled faintly. "They're already closed." He laughed, and for the first time, she laughed too. That day, she finished stitching a simple scarf. It wasn't perfect, crooked seams and uneven folds, but it was hers. A win, however small. She held it to her chest, whispering, "I can still create." Momentum grew. With Lawson's help, she used part of her hidden fortune carefully, setting up a quiet foundation that Daniel fronted for her. Through it, she bought better equipment, hired a caregiver to assist with daily tasks, and slowly reopened her old craft line online. But this time, anonymously. Customers didn't know the woman behind the products was blind. They only saw the quality, the heart in the work. Soon, orders trickled in, then more. Each package Daniel delivered carried not just fabric, but a piece of Emily's resilience. The community began to notice. "Her work is back," a neighbor whispered. "Even better than before." Another added, "Blind or not, she's unstoppable." Every compliment restored Emily's confidence. One evening, Daniel leaned against the counter, watching her hands move gracefully over the sewing machine. "You don't even realize it, do you? You're building something bigger than yourself." Emily paused. "I just want to feel useful again." "You're more than useful," he said softly. "You're inspiring. You're showing everyone that darkness doesn't end a life. It can start a new one." Her heart warmed. For years, Matthew made her feel small, dependent. Now Daniel's words and her own perseverance made her feel powerful. Together, they became a quiet team, Emily creating, Daniel delivering, Lawson protecting. Step by step, her life gained momentum, and yet in the distance, Matthew circled like a wolf. He heard whispers of Emily's resilience, saw neighbors nodding at her with respect, and it gnawed at him. He couldn't understand how she was rising without him. One night, as Emily finished her orders, she heard a sharp knock at the door. Daniel wasn't due until morning. Her chest tightened. She gripped her cane. "Emily," came Matthew's voice, cold and urgent. "We need to talk." Matthew's voice outside the door rattled Emily, but she didn't open it. Not this time. Instead, she waited until his footsteps faded, then sat quietly with her thoughts. She realized something important. Her fortune wasn't meant to sit untouched. It could do more than protect her. It could heal others who had been crushed, just like her. The next morning, she called Mr. Lawson. "I want to set up a giving fund," she said firmly, "but it has to be anonymous. No one can know it's me." Lawson's tone carried respect. "Of course. How would you like the money used?" Emily thought of the hospital wards, of mothers she heard weeping through thin curtains, of neighbors whose children went hungry. Single parents, families on the edge, people everyone else overlooks. If my pain bought me 50 million, then their pain deserves hope. And so it began. Quietly, Lawson arranged everything. Rent was paid off for struggling families. Groceries appeared at the doors of the hungry. Hospital bills vanished overnight for mothers who had been praying for miracles. Each gift came with no name attached, only the freedom to breathe again. Emily never saw their faces, but she heard the echoes through Daniel. As he delivered her fabric orders, neighbors whispered in awe. "Someone's paying off debts in this neighborhood. Anonymous donations, can you believe it? Whoever it is, they're changing lives." Daniel returned one evening, his eyes shining. "Em, you won't believe this. Mrs. Carter, you remember her. Her son's surgery was paid in full. She cried in my arms, thanking God for whoever saved her boy." Emily's lips curved into a small smile. That's what money should do, not destroy lives like Matthew wanted, but restore them. Her generosity healed others, but it also healed something in herself. Each act of giving stitched her brokenness back together. She no longer felt like a victim trapped in darkness. She was a steward of hope, and that gave her meaning. One night, Emily sat at her sewing table, her fingers running across the scarf she had made. She whispered to herself, "I thought blindness was the end of my life, but maybe it was the beginning of something greater." But even as lives were being transformed by her anonymous kindness, Matthew's bitterness grew. He saw the neighborhood buzzing, the air of gratitude, and he couldn't stand it. He began to wonder, who's behind all this money? Could it be Emily? He started watching her more closely, lurking near her building, trying to catch a clue. And one evening, as Emily closed her purse after a quiet meeting with Lawson, Matthew's shadow lingered nearby, suspicion burning in his eyes. Emily's anonymous giving was changing lives quietly, but Lawson soon suggested something more. "Emily," he said during one of their private meetings, "you've already restored countless families, but what if you built something lasting? A foundation that gives second chances, not just money, but dignity." Her fingers traced the edge of her cane as she thought. A place where the forgotten can find hope, where people like me, overlooked, abandoned, are given another shot. Her heart swelled. Yes, that was her mission. Within months, with Lawson's guidance and Daniel's constant support, the New Dawn Foundation was born. Its focus was clear: empowering single parents, training marginalized workers, and offering small business grants for those cast aside by society. Emily insisted her name remain hidden at first, but she poured her soul into every detail. Daniel became her right hand, coordinating deliveries and training new hires. "You're giving people what Matthew never gave you," he said one afternoon. "Belief, a reason to stand again." Emily smiled softly. "Everyone deserves a second chance, even if the world gave up on them." The foundation's first project was a sewing workshop. Emily trained young women who had been abandoned or overlooked, teaching them skills that gave them income and confidence. Their laughter filled the rooms. Each stitch was a declaration. "We are not broken. We are rising." Word spread quickly. Neighbors who once whispered pity now praised her courage. Families who benefited from her programs began telling their stories publicly. The press caught wind of it. Blind Woman's Foundation restores families across the city. Anonymous benefactor uplifts forgotten voices. At first, Emily felt nervous about the attention, but Daniel reassured her. This isn't just about you. It's about everyone you've lifted. Let the world see what hope can build. So for the first time, Emily allowed her identity to be revealed. At the foundation's opening ceremony, she stood at the podium, her cane steady in her hand, Daniel at her side. I lost my sight, she told the crowd, her voice trembling but strong. I lost the man I thought would stand by me. But what I found was a deeper vision, one that sees with the heart. We are here to prove that brokenness does not end a life. It begins a legacy. The audience erupted in applause. Some wept openly, inspired by her resilience. The very community that once pitied her now honored her. For Emily, it was more than a foundation. It was redemption. Her pain had birthed something larger than herself, something that would outlive her. But in the back of the crowd, hidden in the shadows, Matthew watched with burning envy. He clenched his fists as he listened to the cheers, the praise, the adoration Emily received. And in his heart, greed whispered, "That should have been mine." The applause from Emily's speech still echoed in the hall when Matthew pushed his way to the front. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes wild, but his smile was plastered on like a mask. Cameras turned toward him instantly. "Emily!" he called, arms stretched wide, as if he were the prodigal husband returning home. "My wife, my love, I'm so proud of you." The crowd gasped. Whispers rippled through the room. Isn't that the man who left her? Now he's here, pretending? Emily's chest tightened. Her cane gripped firmly. She lifted her chin. "Matthew," she said, her voice calm but cold. "Why are you here?" He strode up the steps, trying to pull her into an embrace. Daniel quickly stepped between them, protective. Matthew's smile faltered, but he pressed on. "I came to apologize, publicly. I was wrong to leave. I was weak. But I've realized you're the love of my life. Please, Emily, let me make it right." Flashes from reporters' cameras filled the stage. Emily's heart pounded, but she steadied herself. She remembered the nights he called her useless, the papers he shoved in her hands, the way he paraded Sophie in front of her. He wasn't here for love. He was here for the spotlight, for the money he suspected was behind her rise. She raised her hand, silencing him. "Matthew, you didn't just leave me. You abandoned me when I was blind, broke, and broken. You humiliated me, betrayed me with my own friend, and called me worthless. That isn't weakness. That's cruelty." The crowd murmured in agreement. Matthew's smile cracked. He dropped to his knees dramatically. "Emily, please, I was a fool. Forgive me. Take me back. I'll do anything." Gasps filled the hall. Cameras clicked furiously. Emily inhaled deeply. For a moment, the past tugged at her. Memories of devotion, of love she once thought was real. But then she remembered her mother's words. "Blindness doesn't erase your worth." She straightened her shoulders. "Matthew, I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. Carrying anger is a weight I won't bear anymore. But forgiveness does not mean access. My life has moved on, and you are no longer welcome in it." His face paled. "Emily, please." Daniel stepped forward, voice steady. "She's given her answer. Respect it." Security, sensing the tension, moved in. The crowd erupted in applause. Not for Matthew, but for Emily's strength. Her voice carried above the noise. "This foundation is my safe space, a place for healing, dignity, and second chances. But not for those who abuse trust. Matthew, this door is closed to you forever." The cameras caught every word. The world would see not a blind victim, but a woman who stood unshaken against the man who once broke her. Matthew was escorted out, his head hung low, his pride shattered before the very people he once sought to impress. Emily stood taller, her cane steady. The chapter of his control was closed, firmly, finally. Weeks after the foundation's launch, Emily's life bloomed brighter than she ever imagined. She couldn't see the crowds, but she could hear their applause. She couldn't read the articles, but Daniel read them aloud with pride. From blindness to bravery, Emily Bennett inspires the nation. The woman who turned pain into power. Her days were filled with purpose. She trained women in her sewing workshop, mentored single parents, and welcomed volunteers who longed to be part of her mission. Children laughed in the halls of her center, their joy a living testament that brokenness could indeed birth beauty. She had lost her sight, but gained a vision greater than she'd ever dreamed. One golden afternoon, as she left the foundation office with Daniel at her side, she heard hurried footsteps behind her. A familiar voice, desperate and cracked, called out, "Emily, please, wait!" Her heart recognized it instantly. Matthew. She stopped, cane steady, her posture unshaken. Daniel instinctively moved closer, but Emily raised her hand gently. "It's all right." Matthew stumbled forward, his once proud frame now gaunt, his suit worn and wrinkled. He fell to his knees on the pavement, ignoring the stares of passers-by. "Em, I've lost everything," he sobbed. "Sophie left me when the money ran out. My business partners abandoned me. I'm drowning in debt. You're all I have left. Please take me back. I'll change, I swear it." Emily's chest tightened, not from longing, but from the final weight of closure. She remembered every night she cried alone, every cruel word he spoke, every door he slammed in her face, and now here he was, kneeling before her, the world watching. She drew a slow breath. "Matthew, I once begged you to stay. I once believed my worth was tied to your love, but now I see clearer than ever." He clutched her hands desperately. "Please, Em, I can't survive without you." She gently pulled her hands free. "No, Matthew, you can't survive without what I've built. And that's not love, it's greed." His tears fell freely. "So that's it? You're going to abandon me the way I abandoned you?" Emily's voice softened, firm but full of grace. "I won't abandon you, Matthew. I forgive you. But forgiveness is not a welcome mat. My life has moved on. My family is here. Daniel, my team, the people we serve. This is where I belong. Not with you." The crowd around them murmured with awe. A woman who had once been cast aside now stood unshaken, her dignity unbroken. Matthew's shoulders slumped. He realized the truth. He had lost her forever. Not because of blindness, not because of wealth, but because she had found her strength. Emily turned, Daniel guiding her forward. The sunlight warmed her face and she smiled. She couldn't see the path ahead, but she felt it. Bright, vast, and filled with hope. Her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about transformation. Pain had birthed purpose. Betrayal had built a legacy. And as Matthew's sobs faded behind her, Emily whispered to herself, "Sometimes the shadow you mock becomes the light you can never escape." The end. Husband kicked out his wife after she was crippled for mistress, unaware of her $100 million fortune. When tragedy struck, Amelia Cole thought love would hold her steady, but instead of a husband's embrace, she found herself shoved out of her own home, crippled and heartbroken, as Jason Cole chose another woman over her broken body. "Get out, Amelia. I won't chain my future to a woman who can't even stand. Sabrina is my life now. You are nothing to me," Jason snarled, slamming the gate while the mistress looked on with a cruel smile. Neighbors whispered, phones recorded. A wife once cherished was discarded like trash. Jason believed he had freed himself from weakness. He thought the world would clap for his decisiveness. But what he never knew was that the very moment he kicked Amelia out, a silent door opened to a hidden $100 million fortune, and the woman he mocked as useless would rise with a strength no one could shatter. This is not just betrayal, it is the story of a wife humiliated in her darkest hour, yet reborn with dignity, justice, and power that would leave her betrayer on his knees. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. Her story deserves to be heard. Don't let Amelia's voice fade into silence. Subscribe now and share in the comments where you're watching from. So Amelia knows the world is standing with her. The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the windshield like 1,000 fists. Amelia Cole gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands as headlights from a massive truck bore down on her. Tires screeched, metal howled, and in one violent second, her car spun across the highway. The world shattered into sparks, screams, and crushing silence. When her eyes opened again, blinding white lights stabbed at her vision. She tried to sit up, but agony bolted through her legs, locking her to the hospital bed. Machines beeped in harsh rhythm. A brace clamped tightly around her knee. She couldn't feel the weight of her own body. Dr. Thomas Hayes, a tall man with a steady gaze, stood beside her. His voice was calm but heavy with truth. "Amelia, you survived something most people wouldn't, but your legs suffered serious trauma. You'll need braces, therapy, maybe even a chair for the rest of your life. There will be progress, yes, but not miracles." The words cut deeper than the crash. Amelia's throat closed. Her dreams of dancing in her kitchen, of running with her children one day, gone. She sobbed quietly, clutching the stiff brace as if it were proof her body had betrayed her. But not everyone in the room was mourning. Jason Cole, her husband, stood at the far corner with arms crossed. Instead of rushing to hold her, his eyes slid to the chart of medical bills Dr. Hayes had left on the counter. Months of treatment, hundreds of thousands in cost. His jaw tightened, not in grief, but in calculation. Outside the ward, Jason's mother, Marion Cole, whispered sharp words. "She's broken, Jason. Look at her. You're still young. Don't ruin your future chained to a cripple. People will understand if you move on. Think of your business, your image." Jason hesitated, torn between the vows he had made and the whispers of ambition that had always driven him. Then another figure entered, sleek, confident, with eyes that lingered too long on Jason. Sabrina Knox, the polished investor liaison, set a folder on the chair. "Jason," she said smoothly, "investors want leaders who make tough choices, men who don't let weakness drag them down. This is your chance to step forward." Her perfume lingered in the sterile air, her hand brushing Jason's arm as she spoke. And when her eyes shifted toward Amelia, pale, fragile, asleep, Sabrina's lips curved into a knowing smile. Amelia stirred weakly, whispering her husband's name in her sleep. Her fingers reached blindly across the sheets, searching for the man who was already slipping away. Jason stared at her, chest rising with a breath that felt heavier than the storm outside. He knew what his mother wanted. He knew what Sabrina promised. And deep down, a dangerous thought began to form. Amelia isn't my partner anymore. She's my obstacle. Jason stepped back into the ward. His wife's weak eyes fluttered open, searching for comfort. He forced a smile, but behind it his mind was already choosing between loyalty and ambition. His next words would not heal her. They would decide her fate. Outside, Marion's voice carried through the hall. "We'll need to discuss what happens when she comes home." The front door slammed so hard the walls trembled. Amelia's wheelchair jolted as Jason Cole shoved it inside without care. Rain still dripped from her hair, and the brace on her legs squeaked against the tile. She had dreamed of this moment, coming home, safe in her husband's arms. Instead, she entered a house colder than the hospital ward she had just left. Marion Cole, Jason's mother, swept into the living room with arms folded tight across her chest. Her lips curled like the edge of a blade. "She can't even stand without help," Marion snapped. "How do you expect to run your business with this burden dragging you down?" Amelia flinched. She had always tried to win Marion's approval, cooking meals, hosting family gatherings, smiling even when her back ached. Now in her most fragile hour, Marion's words pierced like spears. Jason set Amelia's duffel bag down with a thud, not bothering to meet her eyes. "Mother's right," he muttered. "Clients see everything. Investors will start doubting me if they think I'm chained to weakness." Amelia's voice trembled. "Jason, I'm still me. I'm still your wife." She tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away as though her touch burned. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of heels clicking across the marble floor. Sabrina Knox appeared in the doorway, elegance dripping from every gesture. Her red dress glowed against the cold walls, her smile sharp and practiced. She carried a folder marked Investor Partnerships. Placing it on the table, she spoke as if Amelia didn't even exist. "Jason, the board is looking for expansion. They want assurance you're focused, decisive, strong. Investors respect a man who knows when to cut loose the things that hold him back." Her eyes slid briefly toward Amelia, then back to Jason. The meaning was clear. Amelia's chest tightened. She turned toward Jason, desperate. "Jason, I need you, please. Don't let them make you see me as less than I am. Jason's jaw clenched. His silence said more than words could. He was weighing his pride, his contracts, his image, against the woman who had once carried his dreams with her whole heart. Marion broke the silence with a clap of her hands. Enough pity. What this house needs is a new chapter. Jason, you can't rebuild your empire with her weighing you down. Look at Sabrina. She's capable, connected. You know what must be done. The room felt like ice pressing against Amelia's skin. The people she thought were family no longer looked at her with love. They saw her as cargo, as debt, as shame. She tried to speak. But Jason cut her off with words colder than the rain outside. Stop pretending, Amelia. You're not my partner anymore. You're my liability. Her world spun. Not even the crash had hurt this much. Jason's hand closed around the folder Sabrina had placed on the table. He didn't look at his wife. He only nodded once, as if sealing a deal in his heart. Amelia's breath caught. She could already sense what was coming. From outside, the faint hum of phones recording at the gate hinted at the storm waiting in the driveway. A storm that would soon swallow Amelia whole. The golden sun dipped low, painting the driveway in burning orange. Neighbors gathered in quiet clusters, phones raised, screens glowing. The air was heavy with whispers and curiosity. At the center of it all, Amelia Cole sat in her wheelchair, her duffel bag on her lap, trembling as she begged her husband to stop. Jason, please. Not here, she whispered, her voice cracking. We can talk inside. Don't do this in front of them. But Jason Cole was already shouting, his voice booming through the estate gate like a judge delivering a final sentence. He jabbed his finger at her chest, his arm fully extended, his face twisted with rage. You're holding me back. Do you hear me? You are nothing but a burden. I will not waste my life chained to a cripple. The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously, others shook their heads. Phones tilted higher. Every cruel word was being captured for the world to see. Beside Jason, Marion Cole clapped her hands once, smiling as though the scene were a performance she had scripted herself. That's my son. Strong, decisive, she announced proudly. And standing just behind him, Sabrina Knox leaned casually against the polished gate, her red dress glowing in the sunlight. She smirked at Amelia, tilting her head in mock pity. Don't fight it, Amelia. Men like Jason deserve partners who can keep up. And you, well, you can barely stand. Amelia's heart fractured. She wanted to scream, but the words lodged in her throat. The neighbor's eyes pressed on her like stones. Her dignity, her marriage, her life. It was all being stripped in public view. She reached for Jason's arm one last time, her fingers trembling. Jason, I'm your wife. I stood by you when you had nothing. Please don't throw me away like this. For a split second, his eyes softened, memories of their early years flickering in his mind. But then Sabrina's hand slid around his elbow, reminding him of the wealth and promise she dangled before him. Jason yanked his arm away, his face hardening. You're finished, Amelia, he spat. Take your pity and your useless legs somewhere else. This house is not your home anymore. With one swift motion, he shoved her duffel bag onto the gravel at her feet. The zipper burst open, spilling her clothes, photographs, and the brace cleaning kit onto the dirt. Neighbors gasped louder. Phones zoomed in. Amelia bent forward, tears streaking down her face as she scrambled to gather her belongings. Her fingers shook too much to close the zipper. A childhood photo slipped away, landing at Sabrina's heel. Sabrina bent slowly, picked it up, and handed it back with a cruel smile. Keep your memories, dear. It's all you've got left. Amelia's world spun. The gate behind Jason slammed shut with finality, the clang echoing like a death knell. She sat on the ground beside her open duffel, clutching her titanium brace as neighbors whispered, "Did you see that? He really threw her out." The humiliation was complete. The woman who once carried Jason's dreams was discarded like trash, her shame captured on every screen. As Amelia sobbed quietly, headlights swept across the street. A car slowed to a stop. A man stepped out, silhouetted against the last rays of daylight. His name was Felix Turner, a rideshare driver whose small act of mercy was about to change the course of Amelia's story. In the distance, laughter echoed from the house as Jason and Sabrina toasted their new chapter. But Amelia's true chapter was only beginning. The street was alive with cruel whispers. Phone screens glowed as neighbors uploaded clips of Amelia Cole being cast out. Some laughed, some jeered, others simply turned away. She sat on the gravel, her duffel bag torn open beside her, sobbing as the golden sun bled into night. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. A sedan slowed, then stopped in front of her. The driver's door creaked open, and out stepped a tall young man in a rideshare jacket, his face lit with concern. "Ma'am, are you all right?" His voice was steady, kind, not filled with pity but with urgency. His name was Felix Turner, a rideshare driver working late to pay his college loans. Amelia tried to answer, but her words drowned in sobs. Felix looked around at the murmuring crowd, anger flashing in his eyes. "What's wrong with you people? Can't you see she needs help?" he shouted. The neighbors lowered their phones, ashamed. Felix knelt, gently gathering Amelia's scattered clothes back into her bag. "I don't know what happened to you," he said softly, "but I'm not leaving you here." For the first time since the crash, Amelia felt a sliver of warmth. She nodded weakly, clutching the brace at her knee as if it were her last anchor. Felix lifted her carefully into the back seat of his car. The moment his door shut, Amelia's phone buzzed with notifications. Clips of her humiliation were already circulating online. Neighbors had posted everything. She saw herself crying, Jason pointing, Sabrina smirking. The comments stung like daggers. "Dead weight. Pathetic. Good riddance." Her chest ached with shame, but Felix's voice broke the spiral. "Don't read that. You're not what they say. People like that. They don't know your story." The car rolled slowly through the quiet neighborhood. Amelia clutched her duffel, staring out at the houses she once greeted with smiles. Now they were walls of judgment. When they stopped, it wasn't at a shelter or hospital. Felix had taken her to a small, rundown apartment building on the city's edge. The landlady, Nora Pike, appeared at the door, a stern woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and folded arms. "Felix, what are you bringing me now?" Nora grumbled. She ran the building and had no patience for sob stories. Felix explained quickly, his voice firm. "She's been kicked out. She needs a room. Just for tonight. I'll cover the first payment." Nora eyed Amelia skeptically, then sighed. "Fine, but if she causes trouble, she's out." Amelia lowered her head, humiliation washing over her again. She had gone from being a wife in a grand estate to a crippled woman begging for space in a stranger's tiny building. That night, in the dim, peeling room Nora grudgingly gave her, Amelia curled on the bed, silent tears soaking her pillow. She thought of Jason's words, of Marion's claps, of Sabrina's smile. It felt like the crash had killed her twice, once on the road, and now at her husband's hands. But in the shadows of despair, Felix's quiet voice lingered in her mind. "I'm not leaving you here." Just before she drifted into restless sleep, a knock sounded at the door. It wasn't Felix. It was a young woman with law books in her arms. Chloe Adams, a law intern Nora often rented to. She had overheard Felix's story and carried a different kind of mercy in her hands. Chloe's arrival would soon spark the paperwork that changed everything. A trust, a fortune, a chance at dignity Amelia never saw coming. The scream tore from Amelia's throat before she could stop it. Her hands gripped the parallel bars so tight her knuckles went white. Sweat rolled down her face as her weakened legs trembled beneath the weight of the titanium brace. Every nerve in her body begged her to sit, to give up, to surrender. "Stand tall, Amelia," barked Ryan Matthews, the tough love physical therapist assigned to her case. He was broad-shouldered, his voice sharp, but his eyes hid a spark of compassion. "I don't care how much it hurts. Pain means the muscles are waking up. Again, move!" Amelia cried out, dragging one leg forward, the brace clanging against the floor. She stumbled, nearly collapsing, but Ryan's hands caught her at the last second. He set her upright again without pity. "You fall, you rise. That's how this works. You want independence? Earn it." Her body shook, but deep inside, something stubborn burned. She clenched her teeth and forced herself to take another step. Her arms shook against the bars, her chest heaved, and tears blurred her vision. Yet when she looked up, she saw Felix at the corner of the room, nodding encouragement. He had driven her to every session, waiting patiently without complaint, and beside him sat Chloe Adams, the young law intern with big eyes and a notebook always in her hand. She had been the first to bring Amelia soup in Nora's apartment, the first to smile without judgment. Now she leaned forward, her voice warm. "You're stronger than you think, Amelia. Every paper I draft, every form I file, I'll remind you of this moment, because you're not just surviving, you're fighting." The words filled Amelia with unexpected strength. She gripped the bars tighter and dragged her other leg forward. Ryan's voice thundered again, but this time there was pride in it. "That's it. That's grit. That's the woman who refuses to stay down." Minutes later, Amelia collapsed into her chair, drained, every muscle screaming. But when she looked at Chloe, Felix, and Ryan, she felt something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. The kind of hope that whispered maybe her story wasn't over. That night, Chloe placed a neat stack of papers before Amelia in Nora's kitchen. Evelyn Hart, the estate lawyer, had sent them. Evelyn was the executor of Amelia's late godmother, Aunt Lillian Hart's estate, a woman Amelia had barely spoken to in years. "Amelia," Chloe said softly, "these are power of attorney forms. Evelyn says you should sign them." She hinted, "Something bigger is waiting." "But only if you trust her." Amelia's hand trembled as she signed. She didn't know what Evelyn planned, but the firm tone in her letter gave Amelia a strange peace. Maybe there was more to her story than humiliation and pain. Just as Amelia set down the pen, Chloe's phone buzzed with a message. She read it, eyes widening, then looked at Amelia. "Your godmother left more than just memories. Evelyn says, it's time to open the sealed letter." That letter would soon reveal the trigger clause, a fortune hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment of betrayal. The room went silent as Evelyn Hart, escorner, unfolded the heavy envelope sealed with wax. Her presence carried authority, the kind of woman who measured every word with precision. She laid the letter on Nora's kitchen table, the sound of the parchment against wood echoing like a gavel. "Amelia," Evelyn said firmly, sliding the document across, "this was left by your godmother, Lillian Hart, before her passing. It was never to be opened until a condition was met, and last week, that condition was triggered." Amelia's heart pounded. "Triggered? What do you mean?" Evelyn's eyes sharpened. "Your godmother was a woman of foresight. She feared your marriage might collapse if tragedy struck. So she created a conditional trust. The trigger was simple. If your husband abandoned you in your hour of disability, the trust would activate." She paused, letting the words settle. Then she tapped the letter. "Jason Cole threw you out. In that moment, Amelia, $100 million trust became yours." The words struck like thunder. Felix nearly dropped his keys. Chloe gasped, her notebook falling to the floor. Nora, who had been listening from the doorway, leaned in closer, disbelief written across her face. Amelia's eyes blurred with tears. 100 million? That can't be real. Why would Aunt Lillian? Evelyn's voice softened, though her tone stayed firm. "She loved you from afar. She saw how you gave yourself to Jason, even as his ambition overshadowed your life. She wanted protection in case the worst happened. That time has come. The trust is sealed, ironclad, beyond Jason's reach." Amelia shook her head, her hands trembling as she gripped the titanium brace on her leg. "But I'm broken. What good is fortune if I can't even walk without pain?" Chloe leaned forward, her eyes shining. "It's not about what you've lost, Amelia. It's about what you can build. Think of every woman cast aside, every patient who can't afford therapy. You can change lives with this," Felix added gently. "And maybe change your own story too." Evelyn spread out additional papers, medical reports, phone footage of Jason's public outburst, testimonies that Amelia had been discarded in full view of the community. "Every piece of evidence proves abandonment. Chloe has already filed preliminary documents. The law stands with you." Amelia's tears fell harder, but not from despair. For the first time since the crash, she felt power stirring within her, a power Jason could never take back. She had been humiliated, yes, but now she held the weapon of dignity, wealth, and justice. Evelyn's final words cut the air like steel. "From this day forward, Jason Cole has no legal claim over you or this fortune. What he cast aside in cruelty, the law has now sealed in your favor. You are free." Amelia closed her eyes, whispering, "Thank you, Aunt Lillian." The woman who once felt like a ghost in her life had become the architect of her freedom. Just as relief filled the room, Evelyn's phone buzzed with an urgent message. She glanced at it, her face tightening. "We don't have much time. If Jason finds out what's been triggered, he'll try to claw back control through deception. We need to move fast before he makes his next move." Jason's pride would soon drive him into dangerous financial risks, weaving him deeper into the web that would eventually trap him. The gavel slammed down in the private court chamber. "Motion granted," Judge Rebecca Wallace declared, her voice sharp as steel. In one sweep of legal authority, every account tied to the newly activated trust was sealed behind iron walls of law. Jason Cole would never see a dime. Evelyn Hart, Esquires, stood tall in her dark suit, her eyes locked forward. She had just orchestrated the first step of a legal fortress, one that Jason could never break. Around her, clerks scribbled furiously, stamping documents and filing injunctions. Every page was a stone in Amelia's shield. Back in Nora's modest kitchen, Amelia sat wide-eyed as Evelyn spread out the files. Chloe hovered close, taking notes, while Felix leaned against the counter, silent but steady. Evelyn's voice was measured, deliberate. "I've structured a layered trust. Shell companies, clean boards, charitable fronts. Every route Jason might use to reclaim control has been blocked. If he tries to sue, he'll hit a wall. If he tries to manipulate the courts, Judge Wallace already has her gavel ready." Amelia traced her finger over the polished surface of her titanium brace. "So, this money, this future, it's safe? He can't touch it?" Evelyn's eyes softened briefly. "Amelia, not only is it safe, it is yours to command. But it must be used wisely. Power attracts wolves. We will stay silent until the time is right." Chloe leaned in eagerly. "And when the time comes, we'll show the world who Amelia really is. Not Jason's cast-off, but a leader." Amelia swallowed, her heart trembling between fear and hope. "I never wanted revenge, but I can't let him keep destroying me. I have to rise, not just for myself, but for others like me." Felix smiled faintly from the corner. "That's the Amelia I see, the one who refuses to stay down." Days turned into weeks. Behind the scenes, Evelyn built what she called the Amelia Mobility Foundation, a shell at first, but soon to become a fortress of compassion. Bank accounts were moved, lawyers signed off, anonymous donations began trickling to rehab centers and clinics. Amelia's name was never attached, but her fingerprints were everywhere. Meanwhile, Jason strutted publicly with Sabrina on his arm, boasting of new deals and investor promises. Social media cheered his decisiveness, but Evelyn knew the cracks were already forming. One evening, Amelia rolled into the foundation's small rented office for the first time. The room was bare, only a desk and a lamp. Yet to her, it felt like the seed of something greater. She placed her brace on the desk and whispered, "This is not just my armor anymore. It's a banner." Evelyn looked at her with rare emotion. "You've been given the tools, Amelia. Now together, we'll decide how to wield them. The fortress is secure, but the world doesn't know what's coming." At that very moment, across town, Jason stood before a room full of investors, holding Sabrina's hand aloft. "We are stronger than ever," he declared. Cameras flashed, applause thundered. Yet in the shadows, Damian Wolfe, his calculating rival, smirked quietly. The first domino of Jason's empire was about to fall. Damian's interest in Sabrina was not romance, it was strategy. And soon, Sabrina's double game would tighten the web around Jason's crumbling pride. The crash echoed in the therapy hall. Amelia Cole had fallen flat from her wheelchair during a curb practice. Gasps filled the room as she hit the ground hard, her brace scraping against the concrete. Pain surged through her body, white-hot and merciless. For a split second, she wanted to scream, "Enough! I can't do this!" But before despair could swallow her, Ryan Matthews, the relentless physical therapist, crouched beside her. His voice cut through the panic like a blade. "Don't just lie there, Amelia. Look at me. You are not broken. You're in training. Now breathe and let's get you back up." Felix rushed forward, worry written all over his face, but Ryan lifted a hand. Let her fight this one. Amelia's arms trembled as she pressed against the chair frame. Sweat drenched her face. Her muscles screamed, but she clenched her teeth and pushed. Inch by inch, she hauled herself upright until she was seated again, chest heaving, tears running freely. Ryan nodded firmly. That's what I'm talking about. You didn't stay down. And tomorrow you'll do more than just get back up. You'll move forward. From that day, every session became a war. Ryan drilled her on chair transfers, ramps, curbs, and doors. At first, Amelia failed more than she succeeded. She rolled backward on ramps. Her hands blistered on wheels. Her brace felt like a cruel shackle. But every time she faltered, she remembered Jason's words. You're my liability. That memory burned hotter than pain, and slowly, step by step, skill replaced fear. Dr. Thomas Hayes, the orthopedic surgeon, checked in often. He reminded her, progress is slow, Amelia, but these milestones are proof you're regaining agency. You don't need miracles, you need persistence. Meanwhile, Chloe recorded small clips of Amelia's training, not for the world yet, but for Amelia herself. So you can see how far you've come, she said. Late at night, Amelia watched those clips and wept, sometimes from pain, sometimes from pride. Then came the day Ryan called the 12 steps. It wasn't about climbing a staircase. It was about taking 12 consecutive assisted steps with her brace. The hall went silent as Amelia gripped the bars, legs trembling. Felix whispered, You got this. Chloe pressed record. Dr. Hayes stood watch, arms folded, eyes steady. 1, she gasped, dragging her leg forward. 2, Ryan urged. By 7, sweat blinded her eyes. By 10, she thought she would collapse. But something inside pushed her harder. I will not be dead weight. I will not be discarded. At 12, she cried out loud, not in pain, but in triumph. She had done it. For the first time since the crash, Amelia felt alive again. The titanium brace that once felt like a prison now gleamed like a badge of war. She touched it gently, whispering, You're not my enemy anymore. You're my ally. Everyone clapped. Even Ryan's stern face cracked into a proud grin. Remember this day, Amelia, the day you stopped surviving and started living again. That night, Amelia sat by her window, voice noting her journey. One day I'll share this with women who think they can't rise. But her recording was cut short by a breaking news flash on her phone. Jason Cole, smiling beside Sabrina, had just announced a bold new deal at a glittering vendor summit. His peacocking would not last, because hidden beneath the applause were the cracks of a financial storm waiting to break. The ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. Spotlights swept across the stage where Jason Cole strutted in a crisp navy suit, his arm locked proudly with Sabrina Knox. Glasses clinked, cameras flashed, and Jason lifted the microphone with a smirk that oozed triumph. Ladies and gentlemen, he declared, his voice booming, tonight marks a new chapter. My company is not just surviving, it's dominating. With Sabrina by my side, we've secured investors who believe in strength, in vision, in decisiveness. Together, we will build an empire. The crowd roared. Sabrina leaned in and kissed his cheek, her smile glittering under the chandeliers. Marion, sitting front row, clapped until her palms turned red. To the audience, Jason looked unstoppable. But behind the polished speech, his empire was crumbling. Lewis Grant, Jason's weary CFO, stood in the shadows at the back of the hall, flipping nervously through his phone. He had spent weeks patching books, hiding liabilities, and juggling debts to cover Jason's reckless spending. He knew the truth. Jason was living on borrowed time, and not far from him, sipping champagne with calculated calm, sat Damian Wolfe, Jason's sharpest rival. His eyes never left Sabrina. To Damian, Jason's public display was not impressive. It was predictable, and predictable men were easy to destroy. Meanwhile, on a small TV in Nora's apartment, Amelia and Chloe watched the broadcast. Amelia's chest tightened as Jason boasted, Sabrina beamed, and Marion clapped. The same trio who had thrown her to the street now paraded themselves as a picture of power. Chloe frowned. He's using your pain as his proof of strength. The world claps for him because they don't know the truth. Amelia touched her titanium brace, whispering, They will. One day they'll see who he really is. At the gala, Jason basked in his own glory. He shook hands, promised returns, signed risky deals with investors who barely checked his paperwork. Every nod of approval fed his pride. He never noticed Lewis's pale face or Damien's quiet smirk. Later, Marion pulled him aside, her voice sharp with pride. "You've done well, son. The community sees you as decisive. Amelia's gone, and no one pities you. This is your moment to remarry, to expand." Jason puffed out his chest, believing every word. Sabrina whispered sweet promises in his ear, reminding him of the investors waiting with deep pockets. He believed her lies because they echoed his desires. But while Jason signed contracts under the chandeliers, Damien's men were already moving behind the scenes. Stocks were being shorted. Shell companies linked to Sabrina's partners were waiting to collapse his balance sheets. Jason was digging his own grave, one signature at a time. As the applause thundered, Sabrina leaned close, her lips brushing Jason's ear. "You're untouchable now," she whispered. Jason grinned, oblivious. Across the room, Damien raised his glass to Sabrina, their eyes locking in a silent pact Jason never saw. The ballroom's after-party was chaos. Laughter spilled, glasses overflowed, and Sabrina Knox commanded the center like a queen. She twirled in her glittering red gown, letting the spotlight kiss every angle. Men and women swarmed, praising her style, her confidence. But not everyone admired. Gloria Daniels, a rival socialite with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, stepped forward. She smirked as she tapped Sabrina's shoulder. "Lovely dress," Gloria said sweetly, her tone dripping with poison. "Funny, though. I saw the exact same gown at last season's auction. Secondhand, wasn't it? Borrowed again?" The crowd hushed, eyes flicking between the two women. Sabrina's smile faltered for the briefest moment before she laughed it off. "Not everyone can recognize timeless fashion, Gloria." But Gloria's smirk lingered. Seeds of doubt had been planted. At the same time, in a dim office away from the party, Paige Whitman, a forensic accountant, pieced together a different puzzle. Her screen glowed with numbers. Vendor fraud, shell invoices, payments routed through companies tied to Sabrina. Each link pulled her closer to the truth. Sabrina was no loyal partner to Jason. She was funneling intel directly to Damien Wolfe, his rival. Back at Nora's small apartment, Amelia sat beside Chloe, watching the online buzz. Clips of Jason and Sabrina's gala triumph flooded the internet, but tucked in the comments were whispers of oddities, missing invoices, lavish expenses, mismatched jewelry. Chloe's eyes narrowed. The cracks are showing. They think they're untouchable, but the numbers don't lie. Amelia rubbed the polished surface of her titanium brace. Sabrina wears Jason's pride like a crown, but crowns can fall. Meanwhile, Jason was oblivious. He drank deeply, laughing with investors, never noticing how Damien's men circulated through the room, quietly spreading doubts, snapping photos, sending messages. Sabrina leaned into Jason, brushing her lips across his ear. "Don't worry about anything. Damien says this deal will secure everything." Jason blinked. "Damien? What does he have to do with this?" Sabrina quickly masked her slip with a laugh. "Oh, I only meant his competitors envy you. Don't think too much about it." Jason, drunk on pride, shrugged it off. But Lewis, his CFO, overheard. His stomach tightened. He knew exactly what that meant. The noose was tightening. Later that night, Nora, from her apartment balcony, saw Jason creeping into the street below. He looked around nervously before knocking on a door. Nora leaned forward, phone in hand. It was Amelia's building. Jason's voice carried through the hall. "Amelia, I still care. Maybe we can talk. Just a small transfer, enough to ease the company's strain. You know I wouldn't ask if I didn't love you." Nora's recording light blinked red. Every word slipped into her phone like a dagger waiting for the right moment to strike. As Jason whispered through the door, Amelia stayed silent, frozen in her chair. From the shadows, Evelyn stepped forward with papers in hand, a recorder in one, a restraining order in the other. She would not let Jason exploit Amelia again. The pity visit was just the beginning. Soon, Jason's empire would face its first true breach, an audit that no lie could cover. The pounding on the apartment door shook the thin walls. Amelia Cole froze in her wheelchair, her breath catching in her throat. She knew that knock. It was desperate, insistent, and full of false urgency. "Amelia, it's me. Jason," came the voice she hadn't heard in weeks. It was no longer the booming tone of a triumphant man. It was cracked, pleading, dipped in a syrup of desperation. Before she could respond, the door swung open. Jason stepped inside uninvited. His expensive suit hung loose on his shoulders, his tie crooked, his face pale. His eyes darted nervously, scanning the shabby room like he was choking on its poverty. "I still care about you," he began, crouching beside her chair. His voice quivered in a rehearsed tremble. "I've made mistakes, Amelia, but you know me. We shared a life. I just need a little help. A small transfer. Just enough to keep the company afloat. For us." Amelia stared at him, her lips trembling, her heart pulling in two directions. This was the man she had once loved, the man she once built her world around. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part remembered the driveway, the pointing finger, the words that crushed her. "You're my liability." Her silence stretched long, and Jason took it as weakness. He leaned closer, his voice dropping into urgency. "Don't let those lawyers poison you against me. Sabrina? She's nothing compared to you. I made a mistake, but if you help me now, I can fix everything." From the shadows of the small kitchen, Evelyn Hart stepped forward. She had been waiting, knowing Jason's pride would lead him here. In her hand was a sleek recorder, its red light blinking. Every word he spoke was captured, evidence of manipulation and financial exploitation. "Amelia doesn't owe you anything, Mr. Cole," Evelyn said coldly. "You abandoned her in public. You mocked her in her weakest hour, and now you dare to beg for her fortune?" Jason flinched, anger rising to cover his shame. "This is between me and my wife." "No," Evelyn snapped. "This is between you and the law. And let me remind you, you're not her husband anymore. You're a predator knocking on the door of a woman you threw away." Jason's face darkened. He turned back to Amelia, trying one last tactic. "Amelia, I'm begging, please, for old time's sake. Just a little help." Amelia's chest heaved, her fingers clutching her titanium brace. Tears welled in her eyes, not for Jason, but for herself, for the part of her that still wished he had been the man she once believed in. Slowly she shook her head. "No, Jason, not anymore." Evelyn stepped forward, placing a signed restraining order paper in Jason's hands. "You have no right here. Leave before I call Detective Scott to escort you out." Jason's face twisted between rage and panic. He slammed the paper onto the floor and stormed out, his footsteps echoing down the hall. But as the door slammed, Nora Pike's voice called from the stairwell. "Got it all on video. The world's going to see the real Jason Cole." She lifted her phone with a sly smile. Amelia wiped her tears, her body shaking. Chloe gently squeezed her shoulder, whispering, "You're stronger than his shadow." Just then, Evelyn's phone buzzed. Her eyes sharpened as she read the message. "Audit scheduled, tomorrow. First breach incoming." Jason's lies were about to unravel, and the first crack in his empire would open wide under the weight of an audit he could never survive. The conference hall erupted in panic. One moment, Jason Cole stood tall on stage, flashing slides of soaring profits and shaking hands with investors. The next, stern-faced officers stormed in, flashing badges. Detective Brian Scott, calm but relentless, raised his voice above the chaos. "This is a financial crimes intervention. All records and ledgers are to be surrendered immediately. Step back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seizing company assets." Gasps filled the room. Reporters lunged forward with cameras. Jason froze mid-sentence, sweat breaking across his brow. Sabrina Knox, elegant in emerald silk, slipped her hand from his arm and melted quietly toward the exit. Jason stammered, forcing a smile. "This must be some misunderstanding. My company is healthy, thriving. There's no cause for—" "Tell that to the judge," Detective Scott cut in, nodding to his team. They marched straight to Lewis Grant, the weary CFO, who stood trembling with a briefcase clutched to his chest. Lewis swallowed hard, eyes darting between Jason and the officers. Finally, with a shudder, he opened the case and handed over the files. "I can't cover for him anymore," he whispered. "The numbers are fake. The loans are patched with lies. I won't go down with him." The officers seized the documents, and in minutes, years of Jason's secret debts and falsified invoices were spread across the table. Paige Whitman, the forensic accountant, leaned in, her pen moving like a scalpel. "Vendor fraud, shell accounts, payments routed through Sabrina's network. This is textbook misappropriation." Jason lunged toward Lewis, his face twisted in rage. "You traitor! After everything I gave you—" Lewis shook his head. "You gave me nothing but ruin. Damien offered me safety. You offered me prison." The investors shouted, tearing up contracts. "Fraud! Lies! We'll sue!" someone roared. Marion, sitting in the front row, clutched her pearls, her face draining of color. Across the city in Nora's apartment, Amelia watched the live news feed with Chloe and Felix. Her heart pounded as she saw Jason's empire begin to crumble. The man who had humiliated her at the gate now stood humiliated himself, his lies exposed to the world. Evelyn folded her arms, her expression cold and unshaken. "The walls are closing in, and this is just the beginning." Amelia touched her titanium brace, her fingers trembling, not with weakness, but with the weight of justice finally rising. "He thought throwing me away would free him, but it was the very act that trapped him." Back in the hall, Judge Rebecca Wallace's face appeared on the large screen, her voice crisp as she issued a ruling live. "Effective immediately, Jason Cole's accounts are frozen pending investigation." Jason staggered backward, stunned, and in the corner, unnoticed by most, Sabrina vanished out a side door, her phone pressed to her ear, calling Damien Wolfe. Sabrina's betrayal would soon explode in public, and Jason's fall from grace was far from over. The chandeliered ballroom was packed for Jason's reputation-saving gala. Cameras flashed, music soared, and Jason strode onto the stage with Sabrina on his arm, wearing a new designer gown. His voice thundered over the microphone. "Tonight, we put rumors to rest. My company is strong, my family is proud, and our future is secure." Applause thundered, but before it could swell, a ripple of chaos broke the air. A large screen behind him flickered, and suddenly files, charts, and red-highlighted numbers appeared for all to see. Damien Wolfe's leak had been timed to perfection. Fake invoices, missing funds, and Sabrina's shell accounts exploded onto the wall like fireworks of shame. The audience gasped. Phones shot up. Reporters scrambled. Jason froze mid-sentence, his face draining of color. Then, like a viper striking, Gloria Daniels stepped forward, her voice sharp and dripping with venom. "Nice gown, Sabrina. Shame the diamonds are borrowed. Again. And shame your funding network is nothing but shells feeding Damien's empire." She held up her phone, the news already trending. "Smile for the cameras, darling. You've been unmasked." Sabrina's composure cracked. Her hand slipped from Jason's arm, her face burning under the flashes. She stammered, but no words came. Jason turned in fury to his CFO. "Lewis, fix this! Tell them it's lies!" But Lewis Grant shook his head, his voice steady now. "No more lies. I've already flipped. I've given the auditors everything." The room erupted in jeers. Investors cursed. Former allies stormed out. Marion, humiliated, stood from her chair and shrieked, "You've ruined us all, Jason!" Reporters caught her every word as she slapped his arm before storming off, her face twisted in disgrace. Across the room, Jason's younger brother Peter Cole hesitated, guilt shadowing his face. He finally spoke, his voice breaking. "Jason, I can't cover for you anymore. I have the chats, the mistress errands, all of it. It's over." He pulled out his phone, showing the messages to a group of journalists. The walls of Jason's empire collapsed in real time. The crowd that once cheered him now jeered. Online streams caught every angle. Jason, once decisive husband, was now a public fraud, betrayed by the very people he had used. Meanwhile, in her small apartment, Amelia watched the coverage with Chloe, Felix, Nora, and Evelyn. For the first time, she didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She simply sat tall in her chair, her hand resting on her polished brace. "Justice doesn't always shout in court," she whispered. Sometimes it shouts in the same halls where you were humiliated. Chloe grinned, eyes wide with pride. The world is seeing the truth. The mask is off. On screen, Jason tried to grab the microphone, his voice cracking with desperation. Please, listen to me. It's not what it looks like. But before he could finish, a reporter shouted, "The judge is waiting for you, Mr. Cole." Cameras swarmed as officers closed in. Courtroom reckoning was next, and Jason's begging would arrive too late. The courtroom was a storm. Reporters shoved microphones forward, cameras clicked like gunfire, and guards pushed Jason Cole through the doors in handcuffs. His once proud Navy suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, his eyes wild. The same man who had strutted on gala stages now stumbled like a criminal dragged into the light. "Order in the court!" Judge Rebecca Wallace's gavel slammed down. Silence rippled through the packed room. Jason was forced into his seat, his hands trembling as papers were laid before him. Every fraud, every shell account, every signature was there in black and white. "Mr. Cole," Judge Wallace said firmly, "you stand accused of falsifying records, defrauding investors, and attempting to exploit your disabled wife for financial gain. What do you have to say?" Jason's composure cracked. He stood, his voice breaking as he turned, not to the judge, not to the investors, but to the woman sitting calmly in her chair near the front, Amelia Cole. "Amelia," he cried, falling to his knees in the corridor space, "please, I was wrong. I see it now. You were my strength. I lost my way. Forgive me. If you could just speak for me, just tell them I'm not the monster they think." His voice cracked into sobs, desperation drowning his pride. Gasps swept the room. The man who had once called her dead weight was now on his knees, begging for her mercy. Amelia's chest tightened, memories flashing, the crash, the driveway, the laughter of Sabrina, Marion's clapping hands. She breathed slowly, pressing her palm against her titanium brace. Then she lifted her head, her voice steady. "You didn't lose your way, Jason. You chose it. You chose pride. You chose greed. And when I needed you most, you chose to throw me away." Her words cut through the room like steel. Jason wept openly, crawling closer, but Evelyn Hart stepped between them, her presence commanding. She raised a thick folder of restraining orders, trust papers, and sealed accounts. "This woman owes you nothing. The trust is sealed. The law is clear, and the court will not let your crocodile tears change the facts." Judge Wallace leaned forward, her voice crisp. "Mr. Cole, begging will not erase fraud. The evidence is overwhelming. Your accounts remain frozen, your access blocked, and this court will move forward to sentencing." The room erupted, reporters scribbling, cameras flashing. Marion Cole buried her face in her hands, shame dripping from her every movement. Peter, Jason's younger brother, sat pale in the gallery, knowing he had helped expose him. Amelia stayed calm, her dignity shining brighter than Jason's tears. For the first time in months, she was not the humiliated one. She was the woman who had survived. As the gavel slammed again, Detective Brian Scott moved forward, cuffs ready. "Jason Cole, you are under arrest pending sentencing." Jason's sobs echoed as guards pulled him up. And yet, in the back row of the courtroom, a single figure leaned forward with a faint smile. Damian Wolfe. The rival who had orchestrated much of Jason's downfall was not finished yet. But beyond Jason's arrest, something greater awaited. Amelia's moment of triumph, not through revenge, but through the power of walking into her new life. The crowd roared as the doors opened. Flash bulbs blinded the steps of the courthouse. Reporters shouted Amelia's name, and the buzz was deafening. But then the noise fell into stunned silence. Amelia Cole appeared in the doorway, her titanium brace polished, gleaming like silver armor. Supported lightly by Ryan Matthews on one side and Felix Turner on the other, she steadied herself at the top of the steps. Then, gripping the rail with shaking hands, she began to walk. Measured, slow, deliberate. Each step thundered louder than Jason's empire ever had. The same woman once thrown out at a golden hour gate now walked back into the world on her own terms. Tears glistened in the eyes of strangers. The jeering neighbors who once mocked her now stood in awe. At the foot of the steps, Chloe Adams held a microphone, her young face bright with emotion. Amelia, what do you want to say to the world watching you now? Amelia paused, her breath trembling. She looked at the cameras, at the sea of faces, at the thousands watching online. Her voice was soft, but it carried like a bell. I was thrown away when I was broken, humiliated when I needed love. But I learned something. Pain does not end a story. It begins a new one. This brace, once my shame, is now my crown. And with what I've been given, I will not build walls of revenge. I will build bridges of hope. Applause erupted. Tears streamed down cheeks. Amelia raised her chin higher. Today, I pledge to use my fortune to fund adaptive technology, free therapy clinics, and rideshare vouchers for every survivor who feels trapped like I once did. This is not my victory alone. It is for everyone who has ever been cast aside. Behind her, Dr. Thomas Hayes nodded with pride. Ryan wiped his brow, whispering, "She did it." Felix's hand lingered at the chair he no longer needed to push, his eyes glowing with respect. Evelyn stood tall, her papers tucked away, her work done, Amelia's life secured. But in the corner of the crowd, Jason was there, shackled, flanked by officers, his face hollow. He dropped to his knees in tears. "Amelia, please, one last chance. Don't let them take me. I'll change. I'll be yours again." The crowd gasped, all eyes swinging back to her. Amelia's tears welled, but she did not waver. She stepped down the last stair, the polished brace catching the sunlight, and stood above him. "I forgive you, Jason," she whispered, her voice firm but kind. "But forgiveness does not mean return. My life is no longer yours to waste." The officers pulled him away as the crowd erupted in thunderous applause for Amelia's dignity. Jason's cries faded into silence, swallowed by flashing lights and steel bars. Amelia turned back to the cameras. "This is not the end. This is the beginning." As the applause roared, Amelia lifted her hand, engraved words glinting on her brace. "Strength born of scars." The screen faded to black, but her foundation's banner lit up across the city, signaling that her work was only just beginning. Because for every Amelia, there were countless others still waiting for their chance to rise.